Hello. So the other subject that we have in our life, that I have in my life, is ileostomy. And there's some videos out there, but I didn't learn a whole lot from them, what I didn't already learn going through the process. But everybody has their own questions, and so I thought, since I'm doing these other videos with my daughter, that I might as well add this on there. So my road to my ileostomy started forever ago when I was young, because because of constipation. And I don't see a lot of videos, if any, that talk about the same thing that I had happen to me. So I want to just share my story in case somebody else went through the same thing, and then they would know that somebody else went through it, I guess. I don't know. So, long story short about the constipation part of it, always been constipated. Had a daughter when I was 16 and did not know anything about being pregnant and constipated. My mom was mad at me, so I was living with her dad's family, and they were no help. So, I had massive hemorrhoids and all of that since I was really young. But in the last about 10 or so years, I started having these weird bouts of diarrhea that would make me just sweat like crazy, and then it would go away. And then that's probably 20 years. And then in the last 10 years, I would have these days of not being able to go and just being sweating and exhausted, and then I would finally go, and it would be a lot of diarrhea, and then I would just be exhausted from the whole thing, even though I didn't produce much, if you know what I mean. But then it would go away. So I just thought maybe because I was getting older and getting closer to menopause, that I was just changing. My bowel movements were changing. So it wasn't until I would say really the last 2 years have been bad. That pattern continued to progress, but at a pace where I just really didn't think much about it, except that I was unlucky like that. And then, like I said, in the last 2 years, I lost 60 pounds. I've gained 20 pounds back so far. So if you could imagine me even 20 pounds less, the skin on my arms is just hanging. And I tried to get help. The first gastroenterologist, however you say it. I say gastro doctor because it's easier to not embarrass yourself chopping it up. So the first gastro doctor I went to, he took a picture of my stomach, which I had never had done before, and he said, "Oh yeah, you're constipated. Take Miralax. You're just gonna have to take Miralax for the rest of your life." And I was like, "Oh, okay, that sounds easy enough," even though I find that stuff really hard to deal with. But I finally was able to get my mind wrapped around it, and I was able to psychologically get through the swallowing of it. I'm not a swallowing that kind of stuff person. And so then I found the Costco brand was a little cheaper, and it actually tasted better. To me, the Miralax has a little bit of a plastic kind of taste to it, and the Costco brand barely had that. Plus, then, of course, you chase it with the Dr. Pepper, and then you're fine. So, I did that for probably over a year. And since I'm on disability, I have Medicare, so I can change my doctor and go where I want. Thankfully, I know I'm lucky, except for that I'm on disability. That's not really much of a payoff. So, uh, I change doctors. I go to her, and I'm not going to get in detail with you guys, but basically, I just couldn't go unless I was laying in the shower. By the time this happened, and I was seeing this, I saw this new doctor only maybe about a month and a half, maybe, from the time I saw her to the time that I was at the emergency room. So she really wasn't responsible for much of my care, except for that I went in there and I said, look, I can't even go to the bathroom without laying in the tub now with the shower running on me, because I have to help myself out, and I just can't get anything going. And she was like, "Oh, here's these pills." And I was like, "There's pills you can take. It's just that easy. There's these pills." And she was like, "Oh, yeah." And um, I even had brought notes. I had been logging every time I was sick and what I was experiencing and how terrible it was. And she didn't need to see any of that because it was just, there was a pill. And so I was like, okay. Well, then she said, and so I did have some relief, which I found out later on was just like a false thing. But then Medicare didn't cover it. So she gave me these other ones. I think it's called Linzess. I can't remember what the first one was because they were just samples she gave me, but the other one was Linzess. But I was only on that for a couple weeks when I ended up in the emergency room. So I can't tell you if that stuff would have worked for me or not. Well, it wouldn't have at the stage that I was in. So it turns out that anything I had was just passing through everything else. So when I thought I was feeling better or I thought I was making progress in the bathroom, I wasn't. Uh, it was coming to a screeching halt soon. So at that point, I was missing everything: doctor's appointments, visits with my disabled daughter. My mom flew out 1 year. So this happened in November of this last year. My mom came in October, and she came in the October the year before. And I forced myself to go. I had to drive down to LA to meet her there, and I was not missing the appointments. But the first time I went down, I had to keep pulling over. I was so dizzy because I had just gotten over this days-long episode, and I was not good. So then the second time I was feeling a little bit better, but I took my walker because I took my walker both times because I can't walk around down, do anything like that. But also just feeling like I was dying. And here I was shedding this weight that I had never shed in my whole life. I started out at about 178, and I used to be 5'10", but now I've lost a lot of disc because of my arthritis and stuff, so I'm down to 5'7". But you could never tell that that's the weight that I had. Most of it was in my stomach from having that child so early. But when I started losing it, and I was losing it, I just couldn't believe it. I was buying pant sizes. Right now I'm in, well, now I'm kind of between a 6 and an 8 now, but I always thought if I was a size 6, I would be like dead. I started out at a 12, and I used to be a 14 sometimes. Not in the butt, it's flat back there, but anyway. So even with all that weight loss, no doctors were that alarmed, even with telling them what was going on. And a simple CT scan would have just told them exactly what's going on. I wish I would have realized that at the time. So that's my other piece of advice. If you're going through this, try to get a CT scan because it will show your colon and what is going on. So one time I had went to the emergency room, probably a year before that, and they just gave me anti-nausea pills. even though I told them the only time, so here is a part of this pattern with sitting on the toilets, having nothing happening, just sweating. And I don't mean sweating like, oh God, I'm sweating. I mean like pouring sweat, pouring. Yeah, I had to be naked because everything would just be, and then I'm freezing because now I'm wet. And then my heart would just be racing like crazy. You have a pulse right here, and that thing would just be pounding like crazy. And then I would throw up right at the end. It almost was like a signal that it was over. It was always the weirdest. I just thought it was the weirdest thing. So when I went to the emergency room, that's all they did was give me anti-nausea pills. So I was like, okay, well, obviously they think I'm full of shit and I just need to go home and go to the bathroom or something, whatever. So, um, he's my ex-husband, but I call him my husband. He kept saying, different times, go to the hospital, just go to the hospital. And I'm like, so for what? So they can tell me I'm constipated. So I did not go back again until all of a sudden, and also at the time that I had to go to the emergency room, I have arthritis in my thumbs, and I still need to get this side done. But I just had carpal tunnel surgery and surgery on my thumb for arthritis at the same time. So I had a short cast on, and so the whole time, and I had been putting that off for like a year because of how bad I had felt. Well, because I had been taking those pills and I was getting a little bit of relief, I thought maybe I finally feel well enough to get my surgery done. So I got this done in the middle of October, and then this happened on November 7th. So here I got this cast on my hand. I'm trying to deal with being sick. I'm trying to learn how to deal with a poop bag, but with just the tips of my fingers because I've got a cast on. It was fun, let me tell you.